Yeah. I would get the same thing every time. Rice.
No, you can go get those projector things and yeah, I got one at Menards this weekend. Played Christmas music.
So.
All right, here we go, guys. All right, it is 6 o'clock. We will call this December 2nd Common Council meeting order. You'll please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Treasurer Pires, will you please call the roll?
Kenny Myers. Joel Moore.
Here.
Spencer Kingery.
Present.
Aaron Jabril. Here. Cody Nelson.
Here.
Mary Yates.
Here. Very good, thank you. All right, the minutes from the November 4th meeting have been presented for review. Are there any additions, corrections, subtractions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion with the November 4th meeting minutes? None? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes from the November 4th Common Council meeting, signify by stating aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so department heads reports have been submitted. Without objection, we will enter those into the record that you have received them. Anybody have any questions with any of the department head reports? Any discussion with them? Okay. And I'll be asking for a year-end report from each department head too. That way everything's accumulated for the 2024 year and get that to you guys as well. So, all right, moving on to other business. We have Julia Leahy here to discuss the Riverfront District.
Yes,
Yeah.
so thank you. I'm here on behalf of a potential new restaurant as well as the building owner. The former Monocle's location has an interested party to put in a restaurant. However, they would require a three-way liquor permit. Well, everybody, all the quota, everything for Delphi has been taken. There are none. There's nothing available. And so back in 2020, the city established the Riverfront District. And I'm sure all of you are familiar with it, but I went ahead and printed the map for you to see real quick. And it also has the letter from Jeff Staper, who owns that property, that he's in support of this, because I thought that would be important also to know. According to the state ATC, the best thing that you could do as a council would be to consider expanding the Riverfront District. So right now it stops on this side of the Deer Creek. When you read Indiana Code, and I've been talking to Ms. Marion briefly about that. I did read in the language that it's 1,500 feet from where it is developable. So meaning if you were to extend it, Riley Park obviously isn't developable, none of the land going up is, so you could start from a certain point, say Prince William Road, then you would meet that 1,500 feet if you just considered Washington Street only to Monocle's. So that's kind of what I thought. I would get a feel for how you were thinking, if that's of any interest, if there's concerns.
Is this starting down here where it ends off down here, or would it start up or down at on the south end to where that, like you said, the area that's
Right.
developed?
Statute or the state ordinance, it basically says 3 city blocks or 3,000 or 1,500 feet. But then the next exception states that if there is an area that you can't develop, then you could start at the next nearest block.
Okay,
I don't know how you define a block when you look at that area. However, everything I'm seeing makes it look like you could do it. You could expand it. That follows within the statute. The only concern might be the distance to the school. And I know we talked briefly in an email about that. The only concern is the school does own the grass behind Monocle's.
soccer
For the
field.
soccer field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
soccer field.
So then it depends on whether or not you measure in the center of the building to the grass or just the parking lot.
What's that distance?
It's 200 feet is what the state says.
Mm,
So if you were in the middle of the building to the grass, yeah, you're under that too.
feels blurry.
Does
Again,
state
it's a-
statute say property line or
It
dwell?
doesn't say. It honestly doesn't say. It just says the permit premises may not be located less than 200 feet from facilities owned by a state educational institution. So.
It's a little bit of a gray area
It
then.
is, it's a little gray, yeah.
Yeah,
read
because I would
that.
think of a facility more like the school itself
Right.
or like a field house or something.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like big property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so that was the only gray area that I was seeing, and I know we haven't had a chance to actually talk a whole lot about it, but. Yeah, I dealt with ATC and they said everything's taken. So that would be the only option, and this particular type of restaurant would require a three-way, and I spoke earlier with Anita. Cause she was instrumental in getting this done in 2020, she did say that as long as the restaurant has 50% or more of their sales is food, then it would qualify for the riverfront.
Mm.
So it doesn't mean that a bar should go there, and they have to be a food establishment, so you're covered by that under the riverfront. And it's your discretion too, I mean, you're the one that has the ultimate approval on whether or not they could get a permit, so.
And I guess my recommendation would be if you are inclined, I mean, you can't vote on anything tonight, you have nothing in front of you. But
Yeah.
if you're inclined to pursue this and are in favor of it, then we'll work out the mechanics and
Yeah.
we'll try to navigate some of those.
Just fine details, and yeah, otherwise, he's obviously not gonna sign the lease if it's probably not in his favor,
Right.
so, yeah.
Is there an option of beer and wine versus a three-way?
No, I believe all are taken, everything is taken for the city, everything I looked into, they sent me all the different types of permits, 210, 110, 112, they're all taken.
Senator Alting passed something last
did.
year for extending that. Would that,
What it is, it's a development district, and it has to be a designated development district, and I also found out that the fee is $40,000.
oh,
Not sure how helpful
Jeez.
his efforts were, that's pretty expensive, so.
That sounds pretty specific too,
Yeah.
that might have been in response to some sort of specific.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I got from ATC. Was that they did outline that a little bit, but he wanted me to know that the initial fee is 40 grand and then it's $1,000 renewable each year. And it is not transferable. So a lot of times when a restaurant leaves, somebody can buy their
Yeah.
license. And,
which
yeah.
I found out those now go through a bidding process and can be very, very high bids. So
Can be.
obviously different cities have a different
Yeah.
culture that probably would jump on that pretty quickly, but
Mhm.
There's one restaurant locally that has a three-way that I've rarely seen them open. And so perhaps they would consider selling if this is not an option. There's still other things to consider, but
Mm.
yeah, right now,
I
yeah,
just got one more question.
Sure.
Isn't it countywide? Or is it-
it's city. It's
yeah, this
really
one's
city.
attached to the Riverfront District. Yeah,
Yeah, and if
the,
you're outside of city limits, it's unlimited.
That is
Which is
crazy.
weird, right? Yeah,
And it used to be, it used to be that way, didn't it?
yeah.
There were so many in the county or something.
It's actually by each municipality. Camden has one or two. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has certain number.
Because it's based on
Population.
population.
So, yeah.
So that Parrots, that's Monocle's Pizza where the
Correct.
chicken is on here?
Oh, no, 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 no.
No, no,
Just giving
Paredes
you a
is the-
point of view.
that's just the
That's your downtown.
Google
Yeah.
pinpointing.
Yeah.
So that's where, next to the Opera House, that's the new Italian restaurant going in across the street. That's what, and
I'm having
that.
trouble making this map make sense.
No, I
Yeah.
know.
The bottom part of it is about midway through Riley Park.
Yeah. You can see the softball.
Or,
field, I think.
no, it's actually at the, yeah,
Yeah.
right up there by the,
Shows you the. current
Body Works.
district, right.
This is the current setup.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
the-
when you-
The river is Deer Creek.
When you measured out 1,500 feet, where were you measuring from? 'Cause
I was measuring from the edge of the property to
The edge of Prince William.
south of Prince William.
I didn't quite get it when I plotted it out.
I just did it and it's like right on the edge, like right
It's
at 15.
close. It
Okay,
is very
my
close.
thumb may have missed.
Are
But
you doing
need
that
to
via
go up the hillside,
Beacon
right?
or are you
So-
doing it? So Beacon's usually shifted one way or another anyway, so hopefully it would be shifted to the east, right? So.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean, and there's another vagueness in the code that says
right up
3,000 feet. So like, it was an exception. I mean,
I do-
I printed the code and you're welcome, somebody's welcome to have it if you
So
want.
I do have a question real quick on that.
Yeah.
With it being Jeff's property and he's gonna lease it out, wouldn't that include up to his property, not just specifically to the Monocle's building?
So what's interesting is when you
That's
look
a
at
good point.
Beacon, he only owns, Jeff Stanker only owns Monocle's. So the lease would be with Jeff Stanker personally.
Mhm.
The car place is all under a whole different corporation.
Okay.
So, yeah.
yeah, because he just
That's-
bought
that's
that about a
trying to-
year ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's like a
yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask you, how
5 or
long
10
it's
foot
been
section on
vacant.
the other side of Monticle's that wasn't owned by them.
At least
because I
2
owned
years.
that property.
Yeah, I'd say 2 years.
That is
Yeah.
now owned by the subdivision, if I remember right. I looked at that little area. And then everything.
The area in
behind-
between,
Yeah,
yeah, the county has the drain goes through there.
The
But
Guilford-
not right
the
beside
Guilford drain.
Monticle's. They didn't own all the way around there at one time on the.
No, the Zimfer or those
Zimfer,
the
yes.
cottages, I can't remember what their name is now, but they own.
Blackberry Lane.
They
It's right here.
Yep.
This you're talking about right here.
yeah. But literally the
That's-
edge of that field right behind Jeff's auto business and the storage units, that's where the 200 feet's real close.
So for this evening,
Yeah.
sure there's a contingency plan or something weighing on what we'll take
Right,
away
and
from tonight,
obviously
right? So,
It's not what it's like a lease if he doesn't think he'll get it. And I
Right.
don't know that that's in danger of going to someone else right now. It's, it's been vacant for so long,
Mhm.
but you know how time is with some of these deals. So I thought I would get your sense.
We want to get like a consensus on looking into this as a possibility.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
that's just- that's just what
she
we
can
need
leave
for
at
the-
least something, so.
Yeah.
I believe we should do it. I feel like it's sat vacant for so long with the
Yeah.
working kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
Not much in there, but yeah,
right, but it,
yeah.
got the
It has
bones.
the bones, it really does.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
even to
The
I'm
the.
for
restaurant
it.
guy has looked at it. He met
300
with Kevin
feet
Bull,
from the
who's
edge
the
of
commercial
this, 'cause
developer,
this,
the real
not
estate,
schools.
yeah.
Oh, it's
Denny?
not? Who
So-
owns that?
Yeah.
Somebody
Oil?
else.
Yeah, I think it's.
Vince?
Place out there.
I'm good
Mhm.
with it.
That end of town has, nobody has.
he said he's good with it.
No, there's nothing out that way. Mm-mm.
Well, and there, that's the only
Patrick
restaurant in
Pearson.
that area, right?
It is, yeah, it's the only thing there. So,
So he's showing that the parcel that's behind it that's vacant is not owned by the school. Obviously, the one directly behind it is, which is coming up to about 302 feet.
there
So
you go.
that area you might be,
And that's to the edge of the pavement to Monocle, so depending on what the property line would be, I mean, so that.
yeah.
So I mean, I measured it about 10 different
Mhm.
ways to see how it fit that 200 feet, so. And again, it's not a bar. It has to meet your requirements of 50% or more has to be.
Well, then go in front of the Carroll County Alcohol and Tobacco Board.
I believe you have the ultimate say,
Okay.
and then it does have to go before the ATC, yes, but it's based on your recommendation. It was the steps that I was able to glean. from the
You only make
research.
good spaghetti, that's all I care about.
That's Fred's.
You got
Yeah.
Fred, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be great. Yeah.
Can we ask what it is?
Not yet, but I'll see the menu. I do need to protect the identity for now,
We know.
but it would be good. I
Yeah.
had their food, so,
Awesome.
yeah. So anyway, so you want me to pursue this a little further or?
What's the consensus of the board?
So, yeah.
Everyone say.
Yep. Do we need to make that an action item or no?
I would
Okay.
recommend that.
So-
Discussion and it is favorable, therefore we will proceed.
So we will, for the January 2025 meeting,
Have a plan.
does that sound like you guys have something on the docket to present?
At least, we
Yeah.
should be able to tell you what the process would be that you
Right.
have to go through. You won't be able to prove it,
Or-
but we can at least tell you what the process would be.
Okay. Okay.
It might be fairly simple from what I was reading.
Okay.
I don't know.
Other than all the gray area.
Government remains, okay, but we'll see. All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Julia. All right. Next item of business is going to be. Make sure that's, yep. All right, so we're going to go to unfinished business. Last 2 months, we have presented and reviewed an ordinance for the community center. So is there a motion to approve proposed ordinance 2024-14, which is an ordinance establishing the fees and charges for renting the Delphi Community Center on third and final reading.
I'll second it.
Is that Denny?
Yep.
All right, have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All right, hearing none, all in favor of approving ordinance 2024-14, establishing fees and charges for renting the Delphi Community Center, signified by state and I.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Very good. Next item of business is Aaron Jabril to discuss parking and in your packets, you did have the items that she sent from Park Mobile.
Yeah.
Yep, so Aaron,
Yes, so I think in the original agenda that mentioned, like mostly part, my interest was in discussing Park Mobile. That comes from being tasked, I think it was in July when we first opened up discussion about this. And so I was able to get on the phone with Park Mobile just to find out all the information from them. And I wanted to just make sure you guys had all of that. That way, if that was even something we wanted to consider, all of our questions were answered before we could, have even more to keep having to push it forward. So I don't think we should beat the head of Park Mobile right now unless we feel like it's something we want to potentially move forward with. There's a lot of information in there. More so, I think it would be important for us to just open up the discussion around the reason behind it, potentially extending the time a little bit longer or coming up with some solutions to help the specifically the 8 service-based businesses that I think there's 6 of them on Washington Street and 2 on Union that for sure most of those clientele are going to be visiting for at least 2 hours. As when I was part of Delphi Main Street, we really had a big push around Main Street and the business district and wanting people to want to stay in town and dine and eat and shop and play and get their services done. And it's just my opinion that with it not being as congested to be enforcing it so strictly, that it pushes people from wanting to stay. So for example, if I'm getting my hair done at Country Hair 2, but I want to go get lunch at Sandwich Shop and then go shop at Urban Chic. And I just got my hair highlighted for 2 hours. I now need to move my car a block every time I want to move those places. And so what I keep hearing from those business owners, clients of those businesses, including mine, that it discourages them to want to stay in town for more than those types of things. So there's 8 service-based businesses. That's my biggest kind of thought process is let's find a way to maybe create an opportunity for them to want to stay and do more than just, get a tattoo or get a massage or get their hair done. I'm open to a multitude of things. I know that I originally thought, let's extend the time a little bit longer. We talked about Park Mobile, so we can discuss those types of things. Ultimately, I think it would benefit our downtown district in finding some sort of solution to extending that. So people stay and play more. Yeah.
Park Mobile thing, that's nationwide, right?
Yeah. And there's actually more than just Park Mobile. Like there's other services that do what Park Mobile does. Park Mobile is just the one that I had the most experience with. And when I talked to Chief about it, like back when this all started getting enforced, he had experience with it. And so it was something that when we brought up in the July meeting, I think we had a conversation about maybe extending it, maybe doing like permits for businesses. I think Spencer had that as one of his suggestions. I think you had a suggestion that you were supposed to kind of come back with as well. So Park Mobile has a lot of information and like I said, we can go into it. I think there's some very basic things that are important to understand on it. But if this feels like it's a little bit too advanced for our community, then I think we come up with other ideas.
I'm sure.
Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
I'm sure it's too far advanced.
Yeah.
I would have to agree with any of that. I think this is for Park Mobile wise, I understand it. I wouldn't have an issue with it, but with the demographics in our community, I think this is a little bit too much.
Yeah.
At this point. My suggestion is, I visited Frankfurt yesterday and spoke to just random people around the courthouse square, asked them, they have a 3-hour parking. And, I'd be up for, let's, try the 3-hour parking.
Mhm.
It's not reinventing the entire ordinance. It's just changing 2-hour to 3-hour and then, redoing the signs
Yeah.
across the board.
across the board.
You've spoken to your competition up and down,
Yes, I've had multiple conversations with,
how many is it? 4?
so there's
7,
5,
8.
there's 4 on Washington, 4 hair salons on Washington, but there's also a massage studio and there's also a tattoo parlor. So just considering time, I mean, I get massages regularly. And I've had tattoos. And then there's also another wellness center that does facials and spa-based services right next to mine on Union, so 2 on Union.
Okay. Take all the time. but There was many visitors in our city during the trial. and
Yeah.
were elated about the 2-hour parking and the rotation was, other than, there was a few that didn't like it, that they had no vehicle all the time, like podcasters and all that.
Right.
The business people that came,
I 100% agree.
all about,
I feel like yeah, I feel like it's felt as though I've been opposed to the parking in general.
but I understand.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
understand
right.
where you're at, but as far as being, everybody was. It's fantastic to take the 2-hour rotation, they could find a parking spot.
I agree with it. And I agree that there, especially considering we have an apartment complex right there. We have Washington or Main Street is full of restaurants. I understand the need to be moving. And I also understand because I have owned a business on Union Street for 5 years, you know, how congested it can get with employees of businesses just taking up those parking spots. So I'm a believer that we need to have some sort of movement.
My number one thing is 5, 6 years ago, there was 7 empty storefronts.
Right,
Now there's not.
right.
There's 2-hour parking there to protect those businesses. I want to keep them there.
So do you,
Everybody here.
if we change it to 3 hours, essentially that gives them a little bit more time to do their thing. That doesn't mean they're going to be there 3 hours. But at the end of the day, it also frees up an additional hour for the service-based businesses as well. So
Have any services longer than 3 hours?
So, I mean, I do,
don't-
but the thing about it is I feel like even just with that little bit of extension, and now here's the thing, I mean, now common sense. I mean, if it's all but if it's all 3 hours, because another thing I thought was, what if we did 2 hours in some areas and then 3 hour, like, you know, even on, but then that doesn't make sense because people are gonna park wherever they want.
because at
So-
the end of the day, we don't know that the districts are broken up parking wise by business district, by
Yeah.
just, the keyword is district, not by individual business. So a
Right.
business today might be what it is, but in 2 years, it might be a Pizza King.
Yeah,
It might
for
be, you know, so it's per district, not per business. So that's where it gets tricky of
Yeah,
changing this to 2 hour, that to 3 hour, piecing it apart instead of keeping it consistent, because you don't know what the future is gonna be for that individual business or
My biggest
building,
question
so.
is, how far would one have to walk to have parking that is not regulated?
so like there's more unregulated parking from Union. So on Union, you have, you would have, what would that be?
North of Franklin.
North of Franklin, or wait, no, yeah, north of Franklin, and then, well, what would the direction down Union, like in front of Wallman's and Parish House?
That's north.
So we're
Going
talking
north.
maybe 2 blocks
Okay.
most.
You talk
then-
about just for her business or for the,
Everybody.
yeah,
And-
so
Well, then I was thinking, I think it's regulated on the, so on Market Street, is it regulated on the other side, like by the post office?
there's 3.
Right,
What
That
I'm
sound
getting
accurate?
at is, so like, I don't know that I'm particularly even in favor of the 3 hours. 2 hours are in front of the parking lot for the movement. And at most, you're walking 1 to 2, and I'm hearing even less than 1 block for unlimited parking time, right? I don't think in a small town, walking 1 or 2 blocks for unlimited time is an unreasonable thing to keep the front moving, right? The places closest to these businesses. I guess that's my only concern here.
so then, I hear you. From my perspective, multiple times throughout the day, there's a multitude of parking spots open. So it's challenging for, let's say, you're on Washington, now you're walking a couple blocks to get there. Okay, you can walk a couple,
Sure.
I get that. Listen, I'm here for walking. However, what if now I'm walking there and I see 20 open parking spots and it's a rainy day and I'm getting my hair done? Like that would be a frustrating perspective. And I know I say hair because, and it sounds like I'm just talking about Artemis, but I'm considering, you know, 5 other businesses that are in the same position. The other thing that I would say, because again, we're gonna take this however we can, as a consensus believe, and I'm good with whatever, I'm just happy to be having the discussion. Is if, let's say, well, even if we do it, like if we choose to extend it, if we choose to do nothing, I think it would be beneficial if in those like 1 block radiuses that are unrestricted around the business district, we were able to put some sort of like lines like Walman's has across the street. With the street department, that's something feasible. It would help because a lot of times what happens like on Franklin Street, you have all the employees from like Washington and, parking on Franklin, and it can get really congested certain times of the day. But even harder when you have people like the residents that live there that are parking, 4 feet off the yellow line. And then now trash cans are in the street because it's trash pickup day. And so you start to limit even more open potential parking spots in residential areas. And that's just something like I brainstormed and that could be helpful to help keep us a more consistent parking spaces in those areas
So
around the district.
I drove or went to Franklin and looked at, a lot of those houses they have off-street parking, and they also have behind their houses, they have where they can park. Cause I was just curious if that was their only parking, was off-street parking. So I don't know if they utilize that or if they park in garages or what, but that,
Well, in Franklin, I think there's at least 3 houses that don't have off-street parking, just between Franklin and Indiana.
yeah, the yellow, yeah, there was
Yeah.
a few that didn't,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I'm
Or
looking
between
at,
Union and Indiana. I
I'm
know.
looking at it this way. If we change it to 3 hour and we don't like it, we can change it to 2 hour back. And then we keep a hold of our signs, so we're not wasting them in case we have to turn them back.
It's become a lot better. The whole way thing got taken down, the confusing part. And it's been more explicit where it's understandable.
Like the yellow versus the ones that
Yeah, it
are,
was
the ones that are just there now.
Yeah, people wouldn't, said you can't park there because the tollways are.
Yeah, which we put that in place for the trial. Ultimately, it was something you guys discussed that needed to be done
Mhm.
permanently, but the tricky part with the trial was that talking to several businesses was just the color of the sign. Cause the sign itself is it's a sign that's in the MOCT, whatever the technical NDOT standards and all that. So we changed Chief Lamar went and got the green ones, and it dissipated, but
Folks I talked to
Yeah.
didn't take time to read the sign. It said
yeah,
tollways
it's a
only.
standard sign. Like Spencer, I went to Lafayette, went to Frankfurt, went to Logansport, and it was the
They-
exact
they didn't
same
take time
sign.
to read it. It said tollways only. I
So-
said, well, I can't park. It's not- as far as the big one.
That's the goal is not to tow anything, but in the event that a car racks up 5 tickets, at that point, it's so,
Fair game.
Mhm.
If I may speak.
sure.
What brought this on, and our goal is to encourage businesses to be, and I have interest because those are my rental properties on the street. So I'm disclosing that up front. But different businesses have different needs.
Mhm.
And in her case and some of the others, they need more than 2 hours. So you're in there getting your hair done, then you gotta run out and move your car in the rain, move it over. That's ridiculous. That's just crazy. I don't see what would be wrong. with Just go ahead and move it another hour and see what happens. And then if it becomes a problem, then we can address it then. But you gotta try something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at this
Keep
point,
making
trying
everybody
something.
miserable and upsetting
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Well, what's happening right now too is now that like employees are still parking in front of like I'm still parking on Union Street and then moving my car all day. So I can in hopes allow more space on Franklin for my clients to only have to walk around a block to get in. Or in some cases, I'm going out and moving my customer's car. So, I mean, and I know that that's happening at other salons too.
Exactly.
So you're parking on the 2 hour or
I'm
Franklin?
parking on the 2 hour because there's not enough space on Franklin unless if I have 3 employees working and there's already 6 vehicles parked on Franklin, I mean, I could go park on Indiana and walk 2 blocks for sure. But most of the day look at an empty Union Street. So I just park on Union and move it. Now, I'm not trying to disrespect our officers by doing that. I'm simply just trying to help create more parking around the corner for more convenience, because what's happening is Stonehouse employees park on Franklin, they get there at 6 AM, right? So it gets kind of congested right away and it stays that way till about 2 or 3 when they close. So it just so happens that when I typically get to work, Franklin's pretty busy. but Union isn't. So now if Union's busy, I won't. Like, there's times that you're gonna see me parked on Indiana Street because Union's busy when I get to the salon, and so is Franklin, so I just walk my sweet face over. And I don't wanna make this about Union only, and I don't wanna make this simply just about my business. I think in general, it's the congestion on Franklin and how I feel like we could get more cars on Franklin. But also the fact that there's 8 other businesses that also have these same issues.
I mean, if you add an hour and you keep it consistent throughout this to where everything is now as a starting point for what we're ultimately trying to do is find parking in a small community, which is not uncommon. I mean, it's consistent instead of broken up. It gives it another hour for everybody. Again, are they going to use that extra hour? They may or may not, but it opens up an option to see what we need to do next if that doesn't work. So yeah, I kind of like the 3 hour. I mean, it's start. I mean, we obviously have been picking away at this for several months. It ultimately the goal to get it consistent and
Never existed before when we didn't enforce the parking. And now we do, and we decided that even if there's vacant spots, we go ahead and mark the cars and give them a ticket.
yeah.
So that's created a problem because people are not used to, it's just no different than when you come in by the school. For years, everybody just comes smoking into town.
Mhm.
Now they're monitoring. This is
Right.
truthful about the whole situation. So it puts the officers in a bad spot
Mhm.
because they're trying to do their job.
Mhm.
So if you go to the 3 hour, then you can test it and see how that works, because there is places that do need more than 2 hours.
Mhm.
I think it's. a
And why
good
would you
trial.
make it rough on the customers or the business?
Right.
Because you want to keep your businesses going and people in here.
I think it's a great trial anyway.
Yeah, I don't think you'd have to change the entire
So if
sign.
we get Nate to talk on this.
So
Sure.
let's just change it to a 30 and not change the whole sign.
If I could just advocate, I'm talking to Julia about this, but I think it would make sense to enlist the help of the chamber, maybe Main Street, maybe economic development. We're talking about catering to some businesses, and in that broad stroke, you're going to hurt other businesses. So like Shelby's Barbershop hasn't been talked to about parking. She has probably the worst parking downtown in that it's parallel on both sides of the street right there. If people can now park in front of a barber shop for 3 hours that gives 15-minute haircuts, now you're gonna damage them.
Mhm.
If you look at Healthy's, Melissa was having people park in the alley before because they didn't have any parking because it was employees parking there all day. Now they have available parking if you give somebody the ability to park in front of her business for 3 hours. And they may not care. They may say, that's great, go ahead and do it. I don't know that with no other business owners showing up here to put their input, I think it would make sense to enlist some of the resources that you have available to you to talk to those businesses and maybe get input. Maybe once the chamber, Main Street Economic Development go talk to businesses, maybe they all say, get rid of time parking altogether and nobody has to deal with this anymore at all. But I think it would make sense to get some input and information. And they may all be a big fan of the 3 hour, but it would help you guys.
See where they fell on it.
But
Yep.
they're already on 2 hour anyway, right?
Right.
Places you're talking about, everybody's on 2 hour.
Yeah.
Right, so if you give people an additional hour in front of their business, it
Yeah,
further.
it'll help some and then some it may not. But yeah, I've spoken to several businesses and pleaded to please come to the meeting and put your input in. That's what the council's, we're trying to find a solution that fits everybody.
Well, even-
That's been a challenge. So, but getting them here has been a challenge as well. So, and I get it, but at the end of the day,
That begs the question, if we don't have a business representation here today, I question whether there is a need for change. Because I think if there was such a drastic need, I would expect there would be more businesses here. I think we're fairly approachable, so. I guess I don't know that I'm so in favor of even changing it at all.
Maybe
Is
we
it-
can ask Julia to
That's
go
fine.
ahead and reach out to businesses and,
literally talk to everybody.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and get an opinion. If they want to remain anonymous, at least you could say, hey, we did these 40 businesses or how.
yeah, I tried to figure out a
Yeah.
survey and do a Survey Monkey and some other options to do that, but it's you could walk every business in a day. I've done it on a Saturday and talked, so they don't have to disclose, but getting a general number of total businesses and who likes it and who doesn't and presenting it to the council would be to me, a good starting point for what you guys want to do moving forward.
Here's what I think, because listening to the chief there, some people may not want even 2 hours.
Hmm.
Maybe they want an hour for their.
Which is why I
Like
wish
the
they
bar
would
for
be,
15 minutes. I don't want anybody for 2 hours.
yeah, which, but you know, we have these meetings every month and I wish they would come
Totally
and
agree.
voice all that because that's what we
But
want
if
is
that's-
public
that is
participation.
gonna have to Be better to show it, remember, I mean,
So-
if you gotta make an extra sign, what's the matter whether one says 1 hour or 3 hours?
Well, we just changed the number.
Certainly in the past, like for an example, when we went through the Parks Master Plan process and had the steering committee, I mean, we sent out community surveys. And I mean, the feedback was great and there was a lot of responsiveness. So certainly it is something that, like, for our main street, we could prepare a survey, get a survey out to our businesses. But then also too, because sometimes when you walk into a business, that's the thing, is you're not necessarily talking to the business owner.
Mhm.
You know, you may just be talking to that staff member on that day. They may not necessarily know or be able to comment on that. And so then instead of making multiple trips, but if we get a survey out to our Delphi Main Street, you know, business owners and just have options there, you know, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, just some options. Then from there, at least have some data that then, once we would receive that, we could share it with mayor, council, and then you all from there then can see, what direction you want to go.
I like that.
That's great.
If I may, I guess I would piggyback with Julia and even make it a community, that, because that way you get some users as well as some businesses.
Right. Like
And maybe have-
customers of all the businesses.
Yes, and maybe having that survey, are you a business owner, are you a customer?
The tricky part is keeping it consistent with city limits. That's what I found when I tried looking for Survey Monkey and going through how, if we sent something out to a mass survey, how do we tie it into just city properties, city, or didn't, you know, how would you, we know whoever answered that survey was actually a city of Delphi resident, a city of Delphi business. There was no way to actually, because anybody could answer it. Could
So-
live in,
Yeah,
right, but yeah,
To
so
be honest with you, some people that may be for, or against, or whatever might lie about it. So if we go through, yes.
Yeah.
So I
it
think
might
they need to be
easier if
separated.
Julia just went through and, hey, here's the business contacts.
Yes.
Send it specifically to
Because
the.
they know what their customers are feeling also.
Right, ultimately, it's
So-
their business and whatever they want
Their
to.
opinions are based on what their customers are saying.
Could we do one strictly for business owners? And then do another one that had some participation with maybe the people that work there and the people that's in there, you know, however you guys want to do it.
I think just the business owners off the get-go would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just because I think that would be the most factual base that we can get.
okay,
And they're the ones that are paying taxes here.
Yep.
yes,
Right.
yep. And they're gonna put the honest answer on there. It's their
Yeah.
business. It's their, yeah, so.
I do want to mention First Financial Bank opened up their entire last row. There's a sign that says it's public parking now.
Beautiful.
So I think it's at least a dozen spots.
That's
for-
great.
Nice.
You're behind your business.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Good to know.
I just wanted you to know that.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, very
Thank
good.
you. Yeah.
Okay, is that the consensus that we tasked
like
Julia
that.
and JT
Yes.
with each individual business within the 2 hour parking district and
I hate to bring this up, but it's also part of the parking problem that I hear about a lot. It's also the courthouse on that one side. We might as well address that while we're talking about it. Here's what I think. Oh, yeah, I talked to Spencer about it. You go ahead, Spencer.
No, you.
No, all right, go ahead.
Push it off.
So my thinking was we go up and address the council commissioners and see about inquiring about getting the county lot in exchange for the Market Street east side, which is the courthouse side, make that their employee parking.
All-day parking.
Yep, just specifically make it for their employee
So
parking in
we-
exchange for we have the county lot.
so we just swap it.
That'd be, well, the lot itself will be, it'll be city property at that point. I want it. to
Are
be
they
for the-
gonna say, well, then we want the road?
No, they
Or,
can't. do that.
okay.
They can't do that. So, but-
If they were gonna own that property, they're
but
gonna.
Listen, so we can write it in the verbiage that if it ever reverts back from county only parking, that they would get the lot back.
Sure.
So it's basically, hey,
That's
right.
we'll take this, you get
14
this.
spots on market. Is that what it is?
14 or 16, maybe?
Yeah.
But that's also including a couple handicap spots, and then that way that it addresses some employee stuff, issues going on.
Non-handicapped on that side.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Maybe under 9 to 6.
Okay.
Market on the east side between Franklin and Main. East side.
But not on both sides.
Correct, it's just on the east side, courthouse side.
Yeah, and I've talked to,
Yes, sorry. Yeah,
and I've talked to several courthouse employees. I worked over there for 5 years and I get it, right? The being on the first floor of the courthouse and area planning, I had people come in and say, look, I can't park anywhere and I have a court date and I'm going to be late and I'm going to get, so yes, I understand that the employees need a place to park, but there's also people that have to come to the courthouse to pay taxes, go to court, do, so there, it's a double-edged sword of how do we find that happy medium? So I think your idea is, again, it's another, solution that we're trying to find. It's not,
that's something we can address after after January. Something in January, we go up and talk to them because they're getting ready
okay.
to change commissioners and council.
Do you want that to be, like a certain members of the council go, or how do you want to take the group to the county agenda?
That sounds like a mayor / president of the council.
Yes.
If we take everybody and discuss it, is that an issue? No, that's what I'm saying, because then at that point it's,
Should be two individuals in authority who are just conversing about whether or not they're even interested.
Yeah, because they may not be interested in it.
okay.
And if
So
they're
I think-
interested, then you can open it up to a larger discussion.
And I'd be
Okay.
more happy
So
to
we'll-
go up and talk.
And cross that bridge in January?
January or February, depending on how they settle in.
Okay.
I mean, we might as well get this stuff solved. It's just.
It's been a lot and it's been something that we're trying to make a fix. There's not a perfect fix, but we're trying,
Too
so.
much to restart enforcing the code. We can't lay the.
Nah, the ordinance has been in place since 2019 and businesses begged us to start doing our part to make sure they had rotation. So that, it's been a,
Report against that, Marion.
Well, so the current plan of action is survey first and then January, see what the survey
Yeah.
says.
Yeah.
And then potentially have an ordinance in February. If that.
If that's where it goes, yeah.
Okay.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay.
And then we'll try and see if we can get up on the agenda with commissioners and council and have that conversation, see if they're even interested.
because there's a lot of changes starting in
Yes.
January, so.
When you go, let's make one mistake. I talked to 4 people that work at the courthouse
Mhm.
here the last 2 months. How many spots is there on Market? East side,
What'd you say?
10 or-
10 non-handicap and then 2 handicap.
that was the first thought I had. East side of Market Street, making courthouse parking.
Mhm.
All 4 of them said to me, there's 40 people that work there. Where we gonna park?
Well, they're not parking in the county lot, so.
And I said,
Yeah.
well, there's not one of them here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the county lot is empty every single day.
Unfortunately, they're parking in untimed spots meant for Artemis and other businesses.
So I think having that option there will take care of will give some relief, but it also benefits the city as well.
I believe the chief suggested one time the south side of Franklin also is not timed, is it?
Is that by the
That's
vape
just
shop?
somewhat,
There's
The
a
five
couple.
spots.
The vape shop is.
Eight spots.
Yeah, the post office has,
yeah.
what, 30-minute?
Post office would say the idea was in front of the vape shop, there's 8 spaces that could be made on.
Yes, and I spoke of on the other side of Market. There used to be an ice cream place that was there briefly, but it's certainly your guys' discretion, but now there's the liquor store, the ice cream place, and then the apartments which have off-street parking, I believe, but that's another area that you guys can toss that around as you choose. But for now, we'll let Julie do her survey.
Yep, baby steps first.
Thank you,
And then
Julie.
we'll tackle the new members of the common council and commissioners in January. So does that sound like a good idea for the board?
Sounds perfect.
Cool.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Julia. Thanks. All right, moving on. All right, so in your packets, we'll get new business here, proposed resolution 2024-20. It's a resolution for transfer of appropriations. Let me find this one here. Yeah, sorry for the rather large packet, but I want to make sure you guys had everything that Aaron had sent for the Park Mobile. First of all, let's get a motion on the floor. Is there a motion to approve resolution 2024, a resolution to transfer appropriations?
So moved.
Thank you, Cody Nelson. All right, discussion. This was
2024-20, correct?
Yes.
correct. This was a matter that we inherited in January. There was a negative line item in the amount of 500 and yep. So per the State Board of Accounts, this needed zeroed out by December 31st, which we structured each department to do so, which was the street and water department. The last proposal that we drew up had the street department using MVH funds, which come to find out you cannot use MVH funds for the certain items. So Miriam, Julie, and all of us dove into that for several weeks, and that was just you can't use MVH restricted or unrestricted. So in an effort to get this pinned down before December 31st, which is the deadline they gave us, each department broke it up into, obviously water is going to be out of their operating. And of course, the street department broke it down. The change was the 104,000 from rainy day, which in turn, the street department would obviously have to pay that portion back because that's but that's the fix for zeroing out that line item, Julie, correct? Prior to December 31st, which is when they said it has to be done. So any further discussion on resolution 2024-20, a resolution to transfer appropriations? All right, all in favor of approving resolution 2024-20 signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Very good. Thank you. Next item of business is proposed resolution 2024-22 dormant fund accounts. I will let Clerk Treasurer Price explain the reasoning for this.
Do we need a motion first? Do we-
Yeah, let's get a motion on the
Make a
floor.
motion that we approve.
Thank you.
2024-22. Denny said.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Discussion?
Yeah, so, after looking at some of our fund accounts that we have, there was quite some in there that have not been used for 2 years or more. So after speaking to some of my constituents, they said it is a good practice to get rid of those dormant funds, so you don't have them sitting there. It just makes things a little bit easier and it cleans up our software so that we don't have those funds sitting there with nothing in them. So we went through, Amanda and I went through and looked at those, and anything that hasn't been used for more than 2 years, we put on the list. That being said, if it would happen to come up again where we would need to have a fund that has that, it wouldn't be a problem to recreate that or reinstate it.
And that would take another resolution to bring it back, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you guys, I send you guys the fund reports for the meetings, and Fridays when Amanda sends them, then you can see that there's several of them that are just zeros across the board. So again, it helps the clerk's office clean things up a little bit, and it's not something that can't be reversed in the event that I hope to God would never go through COVID again, but there's a couple COVID ones that were never even touched. So so it's not something that couldn't be revisited if needed. So any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, I have a motion, a second on the floor. All in favor of approving proposed resolution 2024-22 dormant fund accounts signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good, thank you. Next item of business is proposed resolution 2024-23 approving and authorizing the ready match funds for Bowen Estates. This was earlier this year when we did the BOT contract for Bowen by taking the $625,000 that was proposed for the Greenway Trail project. The board agreed with taking those funds from Ready 2, moving them to Ready 1, which is what kicked off Bowen Estates. The additional 25,000 was that doesn't add to the city's portion of any way. It was money that was essentially going to go to either it's going to go to someone else or just wasn't going to be used, period. So Jake Adams and I went to bat at an RBOR meeting and said, look, if you guys aren't going to use it, we'll take it. So it was sitting there. So again, that doesn't extend any part of the city's contracted number that's already been in place. So it was money that we were allotted and we've already been reimbursed for it. And it's already been sent out. So it's 25,000, it's 25,000,
Yeah.
right? So that money's already been back. So State Board of Accounts requires a resolution stating what we did with those funds. Again, that's what we did earlier this year. We learned quite a bit through the process of them being here last 3 months. And they stated this, this resolution was required. So I need to get a motion on the floor. So a motion to approve.
I already made the motion.
You did,
Yes.
I didn't mark you down.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
Denny seconded
So
it.
any discussion or questions regarding, again, this is something that we did earlier this year. However, we needed to attach a resolution to it. So any questions from the board? Doyle? Okay, just me. I seen you focus on it. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So, all right, hearing none, all in favor of approving resolution 2024-23, approving authorizing ready match funds for bonus dates signified by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good, thank you. Next item of business is proposed resolution 2024-24, 2025 City of Delphi holidays. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Bro, Cody. All right. If there's any discussion with this, we visited this last month and essentially this was just a resolution attaching what we discussed, and it's also kind of leaves it to where each time we do this process, if there's an additional holiday or any changes to it, this resolution kind of covers all of it. Does that sound accurate, Mara? So, yeah, we kind of tossed this around it made me dizzy last month. I'm not gonna lie. We went all over the place with it, but this is a resolution that kind of finalizes everything, and thank you for clearing it all up. But any discussion on the proposed 2025 City of Delphi holidays resolution 2024-2024? Hearing none, all in favor of approving resolution 2024-24 signify by stating aye. Opposed? Very good, thank you. All right, now on to the ordinances. Next item of business is going to be proposed ordinance 2024-19, an ordinance amending certain sections of chapter 51, water of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Delphi, Indiana, related to late fees and penalties for delinquent payment of water and wastewater utilities. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Cody. All right, any discussion on, Julie, if you want to give us a quick rundown on where this
Yeah,
was
our
visited?
original ordinance didn't have, I mean, it had the delinquent penalties and late fees for water. And they're on the back of water bills, but it didn't list it for wastewater. And so we were requested by the State Board of Accounts to amend that and include water and wastewater so that it would read for the penalties and fees on there. So it's just basically covering it through the State Board of Accounts.
Yep, so it was on the ticket, but it wasn't in an ordinance. So this covers both water and wastewater, so. Any questions or discussion on proposed ordinance 2024-19?
Just for the record, it's not changing the fee.
It's
This is
not.
just the language to incorporate water into the
Right.
wastewater.
That is correct. Yep, there were some things that, an action item had taken place, but there was not an ordinance or a resolution in place to go with it. So the State Board of Accounts has given quite a light on several things that we need to do. And so here we are. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor of approving proposed ordinance 2024-19 on first reading, an ordinance amending certain sections of chapter 51, water of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Delphi relating to late fees and penalties for delinquent payment of water and wastewater utilities, signified by stating aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Did they give us a time frame on this is this just something that needs to
It's
be
just
corrected?
something that needs to be
Okay,
done.
great. Okay, very good. Thank you. Next item of business is proposed ordinance 2024-20, an ordinance amending section 51.39 of public and private fire protection services of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Delphi relating to rental fees paid by the City of Delphi for fire hydrants. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Cause Nelson. Okay, discussion, Julie, another one that we had this brought to us by the State Board of Accounts. You want to give a brief
We had
update?
it listed in the ordinance that the city would expend $172,000 per year. Divided up with the hydrants biannually, but the amount that was listed in there at $175.50 did not add up to that. So this ordinance is amended so that the $172,000 that the city expends for the hydrants would be divided annually per the amount of hydrants that we have, not listed a certain amount per hydrant, but just that the $172,000 would be divided amongst however many hydrants we had currently. That way, if we add more hydrants,
Which we have.
we,
So-
that amount would just be divided equally amongst whatever hydrants we have in the city. So it's not a set amount, because I think when we divided the $172,000 by the amount of hydrants we have currently, it was like $811.34 or something, and then we are currently looking at adding more hydrants for Bowen and for other things, so we would have to continually amend it, so it's just easier to put a blanket $172,000 divisible by the amount of hydrants that we have.
Yeah, and annually.
Yes,
Definitely.
yes.
And we have a total inventory. Craig sends us the total of hydrants. So in the event that like Bowen, you know, if there's 5, 6, 7, however, that'll go into what she just said. It's the total.
Mhm.
So
And to answer your question, you asked there was a timeline. I did read today that there's 6 months to remedy like ordinances and resolutions. So,
The 172,000 wouldn't change just
well, I mean, unless you decide to, like, in another year or something, decide that fee needs to go up from 172 to like 174 for cost purposes or whatever. If you do that, then you just amend the ordinance for 174,000 divisible by the amount of hydrants that you have.
Yeah,
So
I
that
know
would be
that.
the only thing that you would have to amend would be that amount.
yeah, the council's done 172 on the yearly budget for quite some time. So
So who pays the $800 or
It comes out.
the people that's around the fire hydrant?
no, this is city.
This is city.
Council.
Spends it out of the
City.
water.
This
Yeah.
is a line item that
Yes.
the council has allotted every year
So it's not
for.
going separate.
No,
This
no,
is
no.
not separate with the
Yeah.
public or
Just-
anything
just
like
what you're
that.
Stating. it's
Yes,
worth.
it's something that's been in place each year.
Correct. Yep, the city, so that's 2025, we budgeted $172,000 for 2025 like we did previous years. But this just basically covers, instead of that
Kinda like-
that missing number of how many hydrants it covers, if we put in 10 more, it still breaks it down to every hydrant that we have in the city, so. Any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, I have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of approving proposed ordinance 2024-20, an ordinance amending chapter 51.39, public and private fire protection services of the code of ordinance for the city of Delphi relating to rental fees paid by the city of Delphi for fire hydrants, signified by stating aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carries on first reading. Thank you. Okay, I believe that is the last business item for this evening. Thank you for your attention to all those. There's quite a few. Again, we learned some things through the State Board of Accounts that we can do moving forward, some things that we needed to get corrected by year end and within the 6-month period. So thank you for the time on the lengthy docket. All right, future business announcements. Mentioned in the Board of Works meeting that the Christmas parade is a Saturday at 1 o'clock. We also have a celebration. It's a ribbon. It's JT, you want it real quick, just touch base on what it alludes to for the Freedom Bridge.
Those of you that got the Veterans Memorial Plaza, know that, Mark Smith, Gary Stanley worked and did research. We had 2 fallen soldiers from Carroll County, that passed Pearl Harbor December 7th. And so Saturday at 1 o'clock, it'll be a short dedication. But in any event, out at the Veterans Memorial Plaza to commemorate Pearl Harbor, and sadly, you know, the 2 fallen soldiers we have from Carroll County that are commemorated on that, on those rocks out there. So Saturday at 1, certainly available to come out, honor their story there at Veterans Memorial Plaza. And then also we share at Board of Works, if I may, Mayor, from 9 to noon. Delphi Main Street and Scioto will be at the Delphi Opera House. There'll be some gift wrapping. You'll have the opportunity to get some gifts for mom and dad. My understanding Santa's gonna make a stop. There'll be some candy canes, and so 9 to noon at Delphi Opera House. Stop by there also on Saturday.
What was, Carolyn, what was the age limit for the children that was going, do you know? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, it's prior to school age and then I think through 8th grade, but I'm not certain
Okay,
of that top number.
sure. Okay. So, yeah, we
Usually
gotta,
The parents or grandparents bring the children and then they come in by themselves
okay,
and we help them select something.
okay. I know last year it was quite a crowd, so it was neat watching the kids do it, and it's good. We got a busy city this Saturday with a lot of things going on, so. All right, any board comments?
This person, that alcohol related issue and the restaurant and all that's your neighborhood. You okay with that?
From what I understand about it, I guess I'm okay.
If you have questions, which she's gonna continue doing her research, so by all means, if you have questions you want me to get to her or whatever, let me know and I'll make sure I get them to her. So. Any other board comments? Clerk Treasurer Price?
We're just wrapping up end of year stuff, so it's a very busy time for our office. I did send an email out that all additional encumbrances need to be in by mid-December, so we have time to process that stuff.
Which, yes, I'm glad you,
Yes,
yes, yeah, we need to set a year-end council meeting. Last year we had it on 29th, which was a Monday. This year that Monday, the last Monday falls on December 30th. So this will be the meeting where we kind of tie everything that we're working on now into one last meeting for year-end closeout. So sounds like a commercial.
So Monday,
Okay,
December
yeah.
30th, right?
Yeah, so it's whatever date you guys choose. I just looked at it last year. It was the 29th, which was a Monday. This year that Monday is the 30th. So
I personally will be out of town till Sunday, the 29th. So if Monday would be, because I gotta take the boys to Atlanta. So Monday, the 30th is great for me. To be present.
Doyle, Denny, Spencer,
I'm good with
It's
it.
not New Year's Eve. I'm okay.
Cody. Okay,
He wants to be here. I mean.
so we will go with December 30th, Monday at what?
6 PM.
6 p.m.
6, okay?
We need to vote on that, Miriam, or that just a discussion matter? I mean, it's just
Yeah, it's just.
it's not an action item. Yep.
Make sure you.
What could you
Yeah.
possibly have going on for?
I got something that, yeah. I could throw out a couple things, but I won't. All right, public comments. Can you state your name for the record, please?
I'm Tim Walton. I'm here representing the Carroll County Economic Development Corporation. Wanted to give you a little update as well as listening to your input. We will be having an update to our strategic plan coming forward in the next few months. And we're going to be seeking your input, and it's going to come in the form of an email asking for your survey input. I won't be here next month, so I wanted to make you aware of it now, so when you do receive it, it won't be a surprise. We do indeed want your input. And so that will be part of our planning process. If you have any questions or any other concerns, I'd be anxious to hear them. Otherwise, thank you.
So we'll look forward to your email. Okay, thank you, sir. Any? Mr. Spencer, would you?
Retired in Delphi. I realize I'm not at the county meeting, which I'll get to that point. I'm not much of a meeting person. I don't make much presentations or anything of that, and I typically don't come to meetings because I do one of two things. I go home or I work, and county meetings are usually Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 type thing. So I got informed of this meeting and I thought, well, why not come out? Point of my story is I just see a lot of negative influence on social media in regards to the city police department. Obviously, we are in the county. In one particular situation is the release form. that they're requiring people to verify driver's licenses, proof of insurance, ownership of a vehicle. I realize it does take the officers considerable amount of time to do that. I appreciate you guys allocating funds to do such things. I know funds ain't always available from department to department to be able to do that. It's helped my business tremendously and took a huge legal liability away from me for doing that in the past, how we've, if an officer tows a citizen's car and say they don't have a proper driver's license. If Cameron don't have a license and then the next day he comes in and he says, hey, I'm here at Complete Auto, I want to get my car out of impound, how do I get my car out? Well, it got towed for no license. So you hand me that same license that you don't have, that you gave to whatever officer, or your neighbor comes in and maybe his license is suspended. I have no way legally to verify that. So I take that license they give me and I throw it on a copy machine and take a copy of it, hand them their license back, and I say, hey, can you sign the bottom of this license? And off they go with their car. So when they leave my facility and they hit someone and they kill someone, they're gonna come back to me and say, why did you give that guy his car? He don't even have a license. How can I even tell? I can't legally. There's a lot of things I've done different this year because some issues with White County that I've had. There were some towing laws changed that even I wasn't aware of. Of course, everybody learns every day. Things change every day. That release form really helps me tremendously. And someday I hope to get county on board. I've expressed my concern to the county, and it's unfortunately caused me some negative business aspects in that point, and got me removed. So I wanna, that being said, I don't ever want that to happen to the city police department. I realize it takes their time. Some people may see that as a waste of time, that Lamar and his officers are wasting their time. But Lamar and I have kind of talked in our aspect of that is if and when somebody gets sued, because that's what everybody wants to do, is sue somebody. It's not gonna lay in my lap and it's not gonna lay in his lap. So we can leave that lay in the citizen's lap that didn't have the proper, they're just not getting their car back if they don't have what they should legally have. And they sign up to do at the DMV when they get a license. And not any in particular, I'm not saying any races or anything like that. I know Logansport, we have quite an influx of immigrants coming in, and I have personally seen a lot of fake IDs, and they are under the understanding that they can drive with learner's permits. They think they can drive with ID cards. They get very upset with me when I send them away, but I don't have to do that. And not to put the dirty work on Lamar and his officers. To me, they don't listen to me. It's just like, you want to keep my car, you want to charge me more storage. And then they get on social media and they, blast my chains trying to keep their car. Well, when they hear it from an officer, he's like, well, you're just not going to get your car. Then they figure it out. They find someone. Now, whether they find their neighbor, get their car released, and then they go home and they drive their car again. Well, that's not on you guys. That's not on Lamar. That's not on me. So when they do that again, well, they'll just get towed again. And the same aspect is for the, I don't know the proper name, the cameras. Have been, I'm in all support of it, and I've never been I'll be honest, I've never really been a law enforcement, all for law enforcement, until I've seen personally from my business the other side of the story and what they have to deal with. So with the cameras and the release form, you can keep that going, that'd be great.
Thank you, Bert.
That's all.
Yeah, thanks for sticking out the
Yeah.
meeting to put your
You're not-
view
it's
out
not
there.
a meeting.
Appreciate it.
Tell you that, like I said, just came straight from work. Yeah. I'll go back to work. But, it's caused me some, and I know I'm not at the county meeting, but it's caused some real hardship there, and I'm hoping that relationship can be mended and go from there, but Unfortunately, they're in favor of it, and I am. I'm in favor of liability, that's all I'm in favor of, really.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and it's not something that's uncommon in other communities. It's standard. It's something that's common.
Yeah, it
Several,
does.
several
Yeah,
communities.
it does.
It's a protection method for everyone. So,
Hard to call Jim's Garage out of Lafayette that it's happening now to come into the county. I think we need to, and it's not just my business and you guys seen it on social media and I don't have to say names, but Lamar's the bad guy and this and that, but you know what? Any of these guys, any of you can start a towing company. We can put you on Lamar's rotation too. If you want to do the $1 million liability policy that I have and you want to buy, I mean, you could buy a $20,000 truck, or you can buy a $125,000 truck. That's your personal business, but there's a lot of costs involved in it. And I'm open to options too. You know, there's a lot of people on there complaining about costs, you know, oh, it could cost this much. They don't understand my business costs. You know, I could say like Aaron's business, well, you're gonna charge me $40 for a men's haircut and it takes you 5 seconds that you use a pair of scissors on my hair. I don't know her costs. So it's the same thing with Tony. They don't know my costs. They don't know what's involved.
Sure.
There's a lot, but play release form has just taken the liability away from me. Great for me. Any of those people that are hating on the Delphi Police Department, well, I encourage them to go get a tow truck and go see what it's about.
Yep.
We'll see.
well, we appreciate you sticking through the lengthy meeting to put your view out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane.
Just to add to that quickly, if any members of the council want to see that release form, Miriam and I worked on it together. I'll be happy to email it to you. But we've had it in place for probably going on a year.
Awesome.
Any further public comments?
Andrew, I'm the fire chief, and fire department is trying to pay off the mortgage that they have on the fire station. We have a mortgage that remains at about $270,000. And what that does is that costs us $40,000 a year for mortgage payments out of our operating fund, and about 13 or 14,000 of that is interest. So you know, essentially we're losing around $50,000 a year for something that we have enough money currently to pay off. We think it'd be in the best interest of the taxpayers to not have this reoccurring debt if we have the money now available to pay it off. So at our last territory meeting, the board decided or put out a resolution that we would pay it off, and an additional appropriation would be submitted to the state. So Julia's worked on getting that done, but it appears that there's a city ordinance that prohibits that, and I'm under the impression is that it's an old ordinance that was never repealed when the board came into effect. So the city ordinance says that essentially that our for everybody, that our equipment fund, which is our high dollar item fund, not our operating fund, our equipment fund, it says can only be used to purchase equipment. Like very limited. I mean, that's the meat and potatoes of this. So essentially, the fire territory isn't allowed to use that capital funds to pay off the mortgage because it's not like it's limited by that's the ordinance. So she's reached out to the state board of accounts and on DLTF, and they said, you know, there's a city ordinance that says it can only be equipment. The city can't move forward with our resolution to pay off our mortgage. Is that fair assessment? Is that like a brief? Fair?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So-
Well, and Doyle and Spencer and Cameron were all in the room when we asked that question. So,
Okay.
yes.
So we got the email today. She sent out the email today letting us know about how this was, what kind of roadblocks we had as a department. So I didn't have a ton of time to look through some of the things, but what I did find is, again, is the ordinance, the initial city ordinance that forms the territory,
Territory.
agreement with the territory. Didn't notice that. It says, this was before this territory, this is when they still had the ordinance from 1988 that said we can only buy stuff on it. Part of that ordinance says the balance of fund numbers 426 and 442, which one of them would be that city equipment fund, should be transferred to the fire protection territory equipment replacement fund. So moving it to what our ordinance would say, or our resolution. And it says that any prior ordinances or resolutions, part thereof, inconsistent with this new ordinance shall be repealed. All right, so my thought is that this city ordinance, which is 2009-2, thank you, repeals the 1988 ordinance. And then the agreement that the city has with the territory specifically says that the territory shall establish and maintain Delphi Fire Protection Territory Fund. No, that's a whole packet. That's a whole packet.
Oh, okay.
So, it says, establish and maintain a Delphi Fire Protection Territory Fund, which operating and maintaining fire protection, emergency response services, shall take place. It also says establish and maintain an equipment replacement fund, and it's in quotes, the equipment fund for the purchase of fire protection and emergency response equipment, which shall be used to serve the territory. It goes on further to say that the equipment fund shall be used to purchase equipment, just like the old ordinance did, but it also says including housing, so like a station, you know, like large ticket item. So, I agree with, she says it can't go forward because that 1988 ordinance is on there. But I feel like the 2009 ordinance that says it should repeal all those, and then the 2009 agreement that says the new equipment fund is the new way of doing business, that probably should have been taken out of the 1988 version of that ordinance or repealed at that time.
Yeah.
So
Been amended.
it just was never amended. There's other things in there regarding the fire department from 1988 that are still active ordinances under the City of Delphi ordinance website that probably should have been amended or repealed when they enacted that in 2009 and it entered into this agreement. So like my question today ultimately is, does this override the 1988 equipment fund wording that says only equipment can be purchased out of that? The state statute on fire territories says that the equipment fund can be used for equipment and housing and buildings as well. So our request to pay that off using that fund meets the requirements under Indiana Code Title 36. It meets the requirements under the city's ordinance 2009-2, and it meets the requirements under the formation of the territory agreement for the city in 2009. The only thing that's standing in our way from paying that off is a 1988 ordinance that I believe was probably not properly repealed back in the day. I don't know if I've explained that.
So
Yeah,
is this
very
something
clear.
where the 88, we need to find a way to repeal the 88 completely then? Is that what?
Yes.
Yes, or if the language, I agree with find a way, but I think that if the language in the 2009 ordinance and the agreement that the city agreed upon or entered into.
That was changed, it'd
That's
be easier.
probably what repealed the 1988. I'm not saying that you have to have, you know,
A whole new
a
one?
whole new ordinance saying, hey, we're gonna repeal 32 dot whatever that ordinance is for Delphi. I feel like the language exists in already signed ordinances in agreements with the territory that probably overrides that 1988 ordinance.
I think that's a question for her.
Well,
Yeah.
and this,
Yeah.
and the state board of accounts has said, it's as simple as, even with you're talking about that. They said it's as simple as amending that to say that they can use that fund for the expenditures that they're wanting to use it for. So it would be as simple as being able to amend that and have the board vote on it.
Susan. Just real quick on that, one of the things, you know, so that equipment says. B, like subsection B, of the ordinance under Tri-Township Equipment Fund. Tri-Township Fire Department, the fund shall be used only to purchase equipment. It goes on further to say, fire department shall send a request for each fire run. No more than 50% of the fund may be used at one time. The fund may be used only one time a year. Like, there's a lot of things in the ordinance, aside from only being able to use equipment, that is not how we currently do business based on.
That's the 1998 one.
That's the 1990.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like the 2009 ordinance for the city and then the agreement. Somebody probably should have taken that and said, okay, that actually repeals the 1988 one. We're no longer under those parameters.
So I don't disagree with all the things that you're saying, other than agreements can't repeal ordinances. So I think what you're saying is correct, that we have a path around this, but I don't want you to say that this agreement repeals the ordinance. 'Cause
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I think somebody back then probably just said, hey, we've got these new rules, we should have
Matched it up with
amended
the,
it back then. It's just something that was overlooked because there's so many things going on.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm not saying that, as it stands right now today, this, I mean, we still gotta follow what that ordinance says. I'm just presenting a path to, I think. There's language in place that was probably the intent and it might not have happened.
Yes.
So what do we have to do to get this?
yeah, so what do the best, which is why it wasn't added to the docket to get it to where we don't have to go through that entire process again. We can
So-
amend it and then
Right.
present the
So
resolution
my
to the council.
understanding with them is, and I will double check because I've talked to Anna at DLGF and she gave me guidelines and she gave me timelines and she gave me those things. But after speaking to her and throwing this at her, she said, you need to make sure that you contact the State Board of Accounts because this is their forte. So I spoke to them and I told Dan today, I've been on the phone with them since last Tuesday, between emails and phone calls, and the State Board of Accounts has said, he even looked at it, he said, well, he goes, it's right here in black and white, he goes, and if there's nothing to say that this particular one has been amended, then you have to go by this, he goes, it's as simple as, and then today when he came to my office, he sent me an email and I read it to the end. He said, it's as simple as amending what you have, saying that they have the ability to and the capability of using those funds for said purpose. So their mortgage payment is not due until June.
Right.
So I don't want to string it out 6 months. The idea was to get it paid off to benefit them. So we don't want to string it out 6 months. However, with the State Board of Accounts being here for the last 2.5 months and us having to do said resolutions that we did tonight to cover things that were not put in place, we need to make sure that everything is done legally and by protocol per the SBOA. And so Dan and I had this conversation as well. Can we amend the ordinance? Yes, and make it beneficial to them. So it would be as simple as doing that.
So I guess what I just don't want to see is, don't want to see like the solution of amending it. Just to add the language that we can pay off, like we could include housing or building, you know, like what the state statute says. Because there's like C through G in that same thing is no longer valid. So it does correct the problem if you amend the ordinance that says we can use the money.
But we want to update it completely.
The whole rest of the statute,
Right.
we're in violation of every day because we're spending more than one time a year out of it. We don't have a meeting because I can use the budgeted amount out of that fund. Like the rest of the subsections in there are also no longer valid as the way we are currently operating business. So I would rather you take however much time to redo the whole thing as
Amend the
opposed to
whole
just add
ordinance.
an amendment that doesn't solve the
Just-
rest of
that's-
the
yeah.
subsection.
And that's specific, Dan, that's specific to 2009-2, right? The
Yeah, so
2009.
yeah, there's an update in 2016 with
Yes.
amendments, but I think that it all comes down to like the 2009
Mhm.
original contract
Mhm.
that the city entered in upon, because 2016 only updates
It only amended
some
one
sections
section.
of those, but the 2009 agreement is the one that deals with budgeting all the other line items, so I felt like it was probably the more pertinent one to reference for more purposes.
So is this something in agreement to the council will have Miriam go ahead and do so we get this moving?
Yeah.
And so we not taking forever on?
Sure.
So it's paid off, it's
Yeah.
our tax money.
Yeah. There you go.
Because the corrections will reflect the resolution that we approved last week, right? So that part's done. Now we just have to get the one to match for this board.
Yeah, so I mean, there's. As far as the resolution goes, territory, there's probably some things we could fine tune on that. With appropriation number, more defined funding path to what we want to do. If that's something that we need to do at the territory board, then that's something we can do.
So it matches
But
up.
even if it was to the letter perfect, our current roadblock is that there's a current city ordinance from 1988 that's preventing us
Right.
to move forward. That also.
Julie, when you talked to State Board of Accounts, did you share the 2009 agreement?
I shared everything with them. I told them that this was in place, that we haven't found anything that has amended it, and I showed him the paper and he looked at it and said, this is what you have to go by.
But isn't there language in the 2009 that says that ordinance that the city signed in 2009 overrides the other ordinances? Because the city did sign an ordinance with that agreement. And I think it says that in the language. The ordinance says to the and this is where they're getting to the extent of each consistency only, and on its face, it's not necessarily inconsistent. I think in practice, that's what you're finding, and you're getting pinched by that. This is the easiest and cleanest solution to go ahead and get the ordinance amended to take care of. So what's the timeline?
The board agreed to do this before the next payment, which we have 6 months. There's no reason to. We want to do it. We're supporting you got Dan to get it done. He's been trying for several years to do it, but there's not a timeline to have this done before any time other than when the next payment is due for the fire department, which is June. We're not going to drag it out that long. We're going to start working on it. We're going to work on it immediately, but there's not a time. Would you agree? There's not a time crunch that we have to have this done by New Year's or whatever.
My request was to have the balance of the mortgage paid off before
Next
I
payment,
had to spend the $40,000.
correct. Yep, which is July.
If I could get it paid off and free up $40,000 for other necessary operating costs.
Yep.
Then that's
And I
fine.
think that should be our goal.
Yeah.
Just clean this whole thing up.
Sure.
Well, who has to talk to do that? Does Miriam have to talk to the fire chief and you, or who has to get together to get all these details from the old one?
An ordinance and circulate it. And so you'll probably want to see if you sure there's not.
Yeah,
anything
that'd be
have-
great.
if I haven't created a new problem for you,
No, that's perfect.
and then circulate it to you all.
Clean it all up. And the things he mentioned tonight too, that's
Theoretically, we should be able to have something for January's meeting unless I have some other roadblock that we can address. And then that would start your approval process.
Sound like plan?
Sounds great.
Are you good with that? Yes.
Yeah, whatever I got this.
just get it done before July, right?
Deadline of your $40,000 or whatever. Plus, we also have your CD that will be maturing as well. So we want to make sure that it's done before that. Even though that CD, I mean, we can wait about it. It's not a big deal. So you don't lose your interest and stuff on that, but we don't want to have to flip that again and have you wait again if you would happen to need the CD clean.
We'll have her start on it and get on as quick as we can. So
There's I think the state board of accounts won't let, do the additional appropriations until the annual report is finished by the city, because that's what Anna had to bring.
And that may be, that's something I'll have to check on, but
They're due March 1st. So you get maybe would.
But your,
So,
like I
but-
said, your payment isn't until June. The AFR will be done before that, so.
And ultimately, we would have the whole foundation all the paperwork ready to go.
Right.
Right, I mean, like, if we keep chipping away at it, get the ordinance updated, have the resolution updated. And, ordinance
Mhm.
prepared for the city to vote on, not, or approving the payment of the mortgage. Then as soon as that end of year fund
Mhm.
report is due, then it could just be ready to go.
Mhm.
Sitting on the shelf. essentially.
Right.
Okay.
What we gotta propose to get this done?
No, we're just told.
All right, that's all right.
We're just told her to. No.
Yeah, add that to her list. All right, any further public comments? One last motion.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Motion adjourned, a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Nay.
I figured there was. Yeah, meeting is adjourned at